Right. Let's see. Did I do it right the first time this time?
You did.
Did I get it right on time? Oh, you're a little loud. Let me pull that down. That was
Oh, sorry.
that had been an explosion of Adam in everyone's ears. Try it again,
Gross.
Adam. Try it again. Yeah.
Hello.
Word phrasing, Ron. Phrasing. There we go. I think that should be right around everybody's normal hearing range for Adam. So, Angel Devilson says, "Let's go." Yeah, let's go. Welcome everyone to the Dungeon Cooldown. My name is Ron Ogden, and with me today is Adam Slemon, who plays Cristobal on the show. Welcome, Adam.
Thank you very much for having me, Mr. Ron.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is not your first time, and today we just happen to be me and you going to be sitting down talking things about happened the last couple episodes and get some questions from the audience out there, as well as some that have been posted on our Patreon and in the unofficial, I don't know which one it is, unofficial Dungeon Run Discord. So if you have questions for either Adam or I today, please do not hesitate to put them either here in the chat or in the Discord, and we will get to them as we can.
Yeah, Mr. Ryan Winters, no chest hair today. Cool down, not steam up. You know,
he's not getting paid to show chest hair today, guys. He's not getting paid to show chest hair. We do not pay him that rate today. He didn't get his chest hair rate. So
it's a much higher rate.
It's a much higher rate.
Much higher rate.
And Blue Eyed Bruin says,
chest hair. Yeah.
Blue Eyed Bruin says, we don't want to make it too steamy. It is during the day. There might be kids watching, so we want to be careful. It has been quite cold. Morgan. Hi, Morgan. Hey, Jess. It's been quite cold in LA. And by that, yeah, we mean 55 degrees Fahrenheit, which is, fairly cold for LA natives. So I am not an LA native, still cold for me. So it's been pretty crazy here the last couple of days, but better than excruciatingly hot. So
yes, I will take cold over hot any day of the week.
Same.
Any day.
Serena and I were talking about this. Serena Marie and I were talking about this. We're carpool buddies. So we've been becoming friends through our carpools, and it's a lot of fun. And one of the things we were talking about was it's much easier to be cold because I can always put more on. When you're hot, there's only so much you can take off. Then you get to skin, and I can't take my skin off. So, you know. We're not in 5e and don't have spells that allow us to do that kind of thing. So
one day we'll have that technology. Just
maybe
not
one
yet.
day. Maybe one day. All right. So, as normal, everyone, thank you so much. First of all, this show is possible because of our patrons. Thank you, Patreon supporters. And if you are not a Patreon supporter, please consider doing so. We have a variety of tiers, and there are a variety of benefits for all of those tiers. So please take a look. In fact, I think today we'll be talking about something, at least I assume we'll be talking about something. I saw some people questioning about it. The chase sequence that we did in the last episode. Just so I know, I'll be talking about that a little bit today, and I'll be dropping the info in our DM tier so that you can also use this sort of information in your own chases in your games at home. So thank you, everyone, for being here. We appreciate your time and effort. And I guess let's get right into it. I'm going to start with chat. Actually, let's start with Patreon. And Tapartos has a question for you, Adam.
Ooh.
He's got a few questions, actually, regarding and I'm not surprised, tower.
Yeah. As long as it's not, why do you roll so poorly? I don't know why I was cursed this way. It's just...
Well, for every one of me there are in the planet, there's got to be one of you, right? So as good as I roll, there's got to be somebody who rolls terribly like you.
My fiance was actually watching the chat the other day while we were playing, and someone was like, "Someone buy Adam new dice," and I'm like, "I just bought new dice, guys. Just bought it.
Just bought
no
new dice.
difference.
No difference.
No difference."
So the question from Tapartos is it the same layout every time you create it, or can you change its shape and use, etc.?
So the way the spell works is it's a 2-story tower, and there is a selection of 6 rooms I get to choose from. And every time I cast it, I can decide which 2 rooms exist within my tower. So for instance, if I were to cast it and there's the Roman bath on the bottom and then the dining room on the 2nd floor, like in our most recent episode, if I want to change that, because afterwards, for instance, we went to the study, I have to recast the spell and turn the bottom into the study and the upper floor into the bedroom so we can all sleep.
So further on that question line, can you say turn it into a trap to lure stuff into? Does it have a certain amount of hit points in case something tries to attack the group while you're in it? This kind of thing.
Sure. So, I was talking to Jared about it being used in any form of combat. And we kind of decided that it's going to be a structure like any other structure. It's a house. So can we set up a trap within the house? Yes. But not utilizing the components that I create using the house. For instance, right? Gast is in there as my robot, companion. We can't have Gast like lying on the ground pretending to be injured in the hopes that someone would come over and aid them in feeling better. But I'd imagine, like, in terms of hit points for the tower, again, I think it would go back to, depending on what it's made out of. Like, for instance, if it, like, someone rolls up with a ballista, if I had made an ice fortress as opposed to a stone fortress, yes, I think the hit points would be appropriate based on the materials I built it out of.
Yeah, I would rule similarly. And I know that you and Jared talk more about that kind of stuff than you and I do, mostly because Jared is responsible for Cristobal, and we've sort of divvied up individuals in that way. But
Cristobal needs his own DM. He needs his own DM, own representative.
The beautiful thing about Jared and I is that we are constantly communicating about all of this stuff. So none of this is really news to me. I've heard the conversations through Jared and what his decisions are, and because we're co-DMs, the beautiful part about that is I just trust his decision making, and so it's totally okay. Just do your thing and tell me what it is, and as long as I know, that's all that matters. And we seem to keep that agreement together, and it works pretty well, I think. We get together multiple times a week. Well, we meet officially once a week, but for multiple hours, and then we're always texting back and forth, just like you guys are, I assume, in the text chat that doesn't include us. So maybe you guys are planning things. That's good. I encourage it. It's lovely. Okay, so that gamer share says Cristobal be extra, and we love him for it. That is 100% true. Also, hello, that gamer share. Good to see
Thank you, that gamer share. Exactly. That's why Cristobal exists, is to be extra. That's it. Yeah. That's why it's here.
Indeed. I think Slay or TBK kind of made that pretty clear.
Exactly. Oh, my God. I can't wait to do another one, guys.
Speaking of which, Tapartos asks, Ron, can you post some screenshots of the minis that you use in the chase scene? Well, we've got some more minis coming up for, in fact, Adam at the last episode, at the end, he was like, hey, man, I need more videos so I can do Slay versus or TPK. So I will be releasing a couple of those very shortly. So yes, Tapartos, I will absolutely post both of the Winter Wolves and the sleds that I painted and printed, as well as some of the other minis that were used in that chase. I will be posting soon. And then we've got a question from Brian Hughes. Thank you, Brian. Adam, now that Cristobal has gained some new spells and powers, is he feeling he can back up more of his bravado?
Interesting. I don't think so. His bravado, I feel like Cristobal, has been very clear that his strengths don't lie in combat. And I think he continues to be that. For instance, I am a blade singer wizard, but I am reticent, especially after what's happened in this game, to run into battle, and Cristobal is the same. I have taken another spell at 3rd level, which will help me if I'm required to jump in. But in terms of backing up my bravado, I think he's done a pretty good job of doing it from a magical standpoint and an information standpoint. Like I think and I hope he's coming across as an intellectual, as opposed to more of a combat wizard.
I can say that that's definitely the case. In the roleplay that I've seen you do with Cristobal, it's definitely come off as more of a intellectual wizard than necessarily a combative one. But I got to say, your bravado with the kerchiefs coming out as your magic missiles Every time you do that, man, my headcanon just it gets better and better. You know,
Right.
those old like blurred out backgrounds that are sort of moving in one direction.
Right.
Old Chinese films used for like sword combats. So
Yep.
it's just for me, that's what ever always happens in my head, where you just throw in those and you just see that thing turn from a kerchief into a magic missile, and oh god, love that. I love it so much.
And I think that just speaks to who he is, right? Like even his idea of what an attack spell would be is so based in like his world as opposed to a combat situation. I can't wait till I meet another wizard who has magic missile and he throws it at me, and then I throw one back at him. Yeah,
magic missile dueling. It's going to be incredible. Okay, so if we got questions in chat, that was all we have for our Patreon today. If you have questions in chat, or if you see any in the Discord, Adam, please let me know there as well.
Well, let's see. Go chat first, because I definitely saw a couple in chat. Okay. Let's see. Willmeister 420, does Cristobal have any ulterior motives unknown to the rest of the party? Ooh. Does he? That's an excellent question. I mean, I would say, and I think it's fairly clear, that he is there to continue to spread the word of Lumbra and to see what kind of progress can be made in gaining Lumbra some new followers. But I don't think Cristobal is, at least not yet, he's not utilizing his court strategies in terms of undermining anyone or trying to go behind someone's back. I don't really think there's we're not in the environment for it. And because he feels so exposed and weak in his current surroundings, I think he's gathering a lot of informational nuggets that he's tucking away for later, so that when he does get to a place where he's more comfortable and a little more, at home, he might be able to take advantage for some of that. But I don't think he's necessarily conniving or,
He's political, for sure. He's very political, but that's because of his raising, I imagine.
Exactly. And, we're in a situation, I talked about this in the last episode, where it's like, he is out of his element. Like he doesn't go outside every day if he doesn't have to. Now he's like in the middle of the wilderness. So
And I love the first time that you're like thrown into the wild, it's like immediately almost died. It's like, okay, I'm going to make different decisions now because of that. For sure. Absolutely. What I love, especially when you say progress, every time you say progress, all I hear is the greater good. The greater good.
The greater good.
The greater good.
Oh, I love how Jess is automatically like, no progress. No, I don't like it. And I'm like, why not? What's wrong with why not?
It's funny. Infinity Hamster 66 brings up something that Jess brought up as Saint in the last episode, and I really want to talk about this. I wanted to talk about it in the episode, but I was like, this is not appropriate. Maybe we can talk about this some other time. But here, we can talk about whatever we want. So, Infinity Hamster brings up that lumber's against nature. Is lumber against nature or work with it? Well, Saint says out loud that a god of civilization would be opposed to the god of nature. And I think that's an assumption on Saint's part. Now, I'm not saying that she's necessarily wrong. Again, I'm the DM, I know, but I'm not going to let it out. But I just want to point out that is an assumption in gods that I think is not necessarily a good one. We are used to living in a world where civilization and nature are opposed. Yes. That does not mean that all gods who want civilization and gods that are nature are opposed. It's just that we live in a reality in which we have decided that those things are in opposition.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, if you think about it in terms of, cross-breeding plants, like when you have trees or flowers or, cross-pollination causes these flowers to get stronger, to have different species be created off of them, progressing them forward, leaving behind the weaker traits that their past flora and fauna. Thank you. It's
flora and fauna.
Right, flora. Thank you very much. It was restricted by. So, I mean, that is a version of progress. And I think it's definitely, at this time, that's how Cristobal feels about it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that he's not very excited about the Hanging Gardens and getting there, to see what is possible and what, the elves have taught the various races of the North Island. And I definitely think there will be some friction down the line. I just don't think it's going to come from a place of like, we need to knock down all the trees and build buildings, or we need to knock down all the buildings and, plant a garden. Unless Serena or Jess turn into poison ivy, at which point,
well, I mean, there's always
the conversation.
I think there's always chance for players and NPCs to become extremists. That's for sure.
Totally.
Especially in this environment where it's so wild, and like the island you're on is just untamed. Knowledge, as you have known, even about the gods themselves, is not readily available or shared amongst groups. So there's a lot of things that you are out of the loop on because of the island that you're on currently. Now, FF Gogo says, nature has progress. Yes, we call it evolution. And that's not always progress, actually. That's even another thing where you go into, that's sort of a misnomer too. We assume that evolution means good. Not all evolution is a good thing. You can evolve bad traits because it's all about genetic choices. And sometimes you don't make the best genetic choices. Like when you have a bunch of children with your siblings. As we have learned from kings and queens over the millennia, not a great evolutionary trait guys.
No, it's not a good.
Princess Anastasia probably would have a word with you about that.
Ron, we got some questions in
I see
Discord.
it.
Yeah. Let's see.
Discord questions, great.
Here we go. Ryan Winters is asking, what's your favorite weird class and race combination? What's your favorite one?
I really like the Dwarven Wizard. And I know that's probably not gonna. I know that's probably not gonna come off as a weird one because dwarves are very common and so are wizards. But traditionally speaking, in the D&D worlds, dwarves are not that great at magic, and so I really heart the dwarven mage concept. Whether it's a dwarven wizard, a dwarven artificer, I think they're more likely to be artificers just because they work with things. But agreed. I really love the idea of a dwarven sorcerer, for example, or dwarven warlock. These things really, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I love like the idea of, and you did it so. You combated one actually in the first season of the dungeon run with a gnome monk.
Yeah, gnome monk.
I just love that idea of like someone who's very martial arts based, being of such small stature. Because I feel like a lot of martial artists, myself being one, got into it because we're of smaller stature, at least initially.
Do people out there know that you're a martial artist? Is that like
I don't know. That's a good question.
Well, tell us a little bit about your martial artistry.
So I've been a martial artist for over 20 years. I started because I got my butt kicked a lot because I got a big mouth as a kid. So I started. I know it's going to surprise everybody here. So I started as a boxer and then went on to Taekwondo, karate, capoeira, Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I even taught a little bit out here for a while. I taught children's martial arts and I was a striking coach for some amateur level MMA stuff.
Very cool.
But yeah, it's, I don't do it as much anymore. It's more for fitness because this is going to surprise everyone. Getting punched in the face, not a great time.
No. Also not good for your health. Not good for your health. Yeah.
No.
The more and more we learn about what football is doing to its players, the more and more we realize that head trauma, which is now what I say every time we see it on TV. Because if you pay attention now that I've mentioned it, every movie and television show that you watch, most violence is head trauma. Just saying. It is most is head trauma, which I think is incredibly problematic because head trauma, it doesn't take that much for certain individuals to get hit in the head and you're not good for a while. So be careful about head trauma, guys. Concussions are real things. And, it's probably a good thing that now it's just martial arts as a form of exercise rather than competition-based sport for you.
Yeah, for me,
I worry about your head trauma.
So is my fiance.
I worry about my own head trauma, but yeah. So that's awesome, dude. Like fun fact, I did martial arts for a good amount of my life, mostly when I was a kid and in high school and college. But when I was a kid, we had just moved to Florida. I think it was like 11, 12, and I started taking a martial arts class. The man who taught me martial arts was the person they put in the suit for Donatello in the original Ninja Turtles movie.
Oh, the original. Oh, I love that movie so much.
Yep. And so for like 2 months I got to learn martial arts from my favorite Ninja Turtle.
That's the first guy who taught me boxing was a mob enforcer.
Oh wow.
So similar but different.
Similar but
went
different.
On to the big show. Yeah.
He's in Sopranos. He was in the Sopranos.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we had some stuff up here in chat.
Yeah.
We had Chuckles McPooty. Wonderful name.
Love that name.
Love it. So I wanted to say that I just finished season 1, campaign 1, and wanted to say thank you, Ron, for one of the greatest, most immersive campaigns I've ever enjoyed watching. You're very welcome. I don't know if you know this, but we've got another one going on. And in fact, they did, because they said, you guys are the bee's knees, truly great. I'm working on getting caught up with the new campaign now. I hope that was an intentional use of bee's knees. And if not, then kudos to you. You'll find out soon. Also, for those of you out there, if you didn't know, Adam is the wonderful mind behind our Dungeon Rush. So he literally watches the episode 3 or 4 times every week to break those things down. So he's put in a lot of work. And you know what? I just want to take some time right now, Adam, to give you a round of applause, because that is not easy, man. And I really appreciate the work that you do for the show. It also helps me keep on track quick and easily, too. So it's, dual benefit.
It helps me remember everything that happens in the episode, too.
I can only imagine.
Like, as the one who's supposed to be like the most intelligent, I'm sitting there going, I better watch this episode again in case I missed something.
Yeah, I think all of us could probably use a little bit of that we should just take 15 minutes each week and really sit down and watch that. Just to keep us all in the same mindset, and so that we can also carry over. We're pretty good at it, but carry over emotions between episodes too.
Ooh, let's see. AG McLeod. How do you keep straight faces with a Canadian accent? How do you do it, Ron?
It's it's pretty hard, eh? It's not very easy, yo. I mean, I'm not the best at a Canadian accent, clearly, as we have learned in this last couple of episodes. I think I'm getting better at it. I think it's improving as I've improved as we've played the episodes. But it's really hard.
Great job, for sure.
For sure,
really nice.
Oh yeah, it's like right there. I'm getting there. I just hope. What I really hope is that our Canadian watchers are not like just incredibly offended. I don't think they are, because we're painting them as like nice and wonderful people, or at least these particular individuals are. So I don't think so, but I'm always worried about that. Like, I didn't mean to offend you, eh?
I would love to get like some really nice hate mail from Canada. I think that would be a really fun.
Excuse me, sirs and madams. I'm a little upset about what you have been doing on the show there, eh? I'm not really upset. It's more of just, maybe think of me sometimes. Also, have a beer. Let's get it, and let's have a fun time.
A beer, Because let's be honest, like, our northern neighbors are so much better than us in every single way. The only thing we're better at is being mean.
Yes.
I want to be chastised by my northern neighbors, please.
When I was growing up, there was always the joke that Canada is America light. And I'm like, I don't think that is. I think we're Canadian stout is what we are. We're Canadian stout. That's what it is. It just kicks you. It's a nice time, but it'll kick you in the teeth if you're not careful. And I think that wraps up pretty well on the Americans versus Canadians. Infinity Hamster again, Ron, are there geese enemies in your campaign? Are there Canadian geese animus? I don't know. I guess we'll just have to wait and see if that exists or not, right?
I love that. Just an excuse to make Ron and Jared do more voices, more accents.
For sure.
I told Jared, like, I am super excited for us to get back to my hometown to make both of you guys do Spanish accents. Like, that is
another one that I cannot do that well. I'm waiting for the time where we have to do like just straight up Castilian for like 2 episodes. I've been practicing a little bit. When I hear you do it, I've been practicing slightly just to make sure that when we get there, I'm ready. But yeah, for sure. Let's see. We've got another. Go ahead.
Mr. Ryan Winters asks, "Can the house be used to crush people?"
Oh, yeah.
I can't. What happens is once the house dissipates, everyone is safely ejected from the house. And by ejected, I don't mean like James Bond ejection seat. I mean, they literally just appear outside the house. Now, I talked to Jared about using it in combat, and no matter what, even if I burn a spell slot, it's still going to take 10 minutes to create. So I can't be sitting there like and summon a tower, 10 feet above a bunch of enemies. So unfortunately,
which would be a very effective spell. And now I want there to be a tower meteor, essentially, right? Like when you summon an instantaneous fortress, I think is a wondrous item you can get. I would love that to be a spell where that's your attack. It's like just massive damage. It's just massive damage, guys. It's okay.
Just drop a tower.
Just drop a tower on you. Be fine. I saved. Sorry, I'm going to take half damage now. We've got a question from that gamer share. How does Cristobal feel about his unexpected role as tutor, especially to Otto? Has he surprised himself with this gesture, or has he felt deep down below his surface facade of bravado that teaching is natural to him? Good question.
That's a great question.
That's a great question.
I think Cristobal is great at faking it till he makes it. But the idea of him being in charge of anyone's tutelage makes him a bit uncomfortable. I think he's going to be much more readily, he's going to be much more eager to, for instance, further Otto's education when it comes to Lumbra than it will come to magic. And that's not because he doesn't value Otto, it's just because of his own feelings of inadequacy when it comes to his personal upbringing with magic. It's like he did not spend the time that he should have spent, and he actually sees a more dedicated pupil in Otto than he ever saw in himself. So I think there's a lot of there'll be a little competition, I think, at some point with, especially as Otto progresses. I don't know if he enjoys teaching. I definitely think he enjoys the companionship of Otto. Just like he enjoys everyone's companionship for different reasons, though.
Right. That's a great answer to a great question. Thank you.
That is a great question.
Gamer share. Thank you.
Let's see.
Brianna has one
go ahead.
for either of us, probably both of us, I'd say. How does preparing for or preparing as a guest role differ from preparing for a continuing campaign? Well, for me, it's a little different, right? Like, I don't know. It's very similar for me. For my process, it's very similar. And I've talked about this before on a cooldown, is for me, it's either I have a good character concept and then I fit it to classes and race combinations that are available in 5e. But sometimes I'll have a class and race combination that I want to play, and then I have to find the character that's built within that.
Sure.
I find that it's easier for me to adhere the class and race combinations to a character concept that I've had. So, for example, Red. Red was obviously a concept. And really what it came for me was, and the way I describe it to some people, is the island of Dr. Moreau meets Rocket Raccoon. So, it's like Island Dr. Moreau meets Marvel. And so for me, like, how do I... what class and race can I really fit in there? I wanted it to be a scientist. And so because I wanted to be a scientist, the only one I could really think of that fits well in the genre was alchemist, because that's an artificer. I guess I could have done really any type of artificer, but specifically because I wanted him to be that kind of drink a potion and become a monster. Alchemists seem to work really well for that. But mostly it's the same for me. I'm an improviser by trade. That's kind of what I have always specialized in. And so coming up with a character concept and a loose background has always been something that is just generic in my character creation, because they teach you to do that in improv. You need to kind of have quick thoughts as you're improvising so that you can pull things from. And sometimes it isn't something that I've prepared and I just pulled it in, and now it becomes canon to the character.
Sure.
So that's how it feels to me in the difference between a one-shot, preparing for a one-shot and a campaign. There's not too much differentiation there. Now playing is a different thing. What I focus on when I'm playing in a one shot is very different than what I focus on in a campaign, because in a campaign you really are allowed to focus on your backstory and how it fits in with the group, whereas a one shot you're really focusing on, well, we got to get the thing done. So that's the difference for me. What about you, Adam?
Sure. I mean, for me, like you, Ron, improviser. So character creation is paramount, and it happens the same whether it be a one shot or whether it be a campaign. And I find that personally, when I do one shots, I tend to, and this is just me in general, I like to make a fun choice, silly choice, oftentimes. Not that it isn't grounded; it's grounded, but a fun, silly choice. And I tend to make them kitschy as opposed to I'll take like you. I'll take a for instance. I just played an Air Genasi in a Morgan one shot. That was a lot of fun, and to create that character that was just his whole personality and his whole being centered around his class and his race, and you couple that with a fun accent, and I don't worry about we have this saying in improv where it's like you're an inch wide and a mile deep, right? That's like what a character is. It's like this is who your character is, and there's so much below the surface, but this is what your character is. So when I'm preparing a character for a one shot, I tend to be a mile wide and an inch deep. You know, when it comes to playing, I agree with Ron in that it's about immediacy. It's about having a task where the stakes are super high and pursuing it relentlessly. Here in a campaign, you don't have to pursue because that's not how you are. Like as a human being, I have goals, you have goals, but we're not relentlessly pursuing our goals because that's just not human. That's not the human nature. We get setbacks and pushbacks.
And in fact, when we find people that are like that, it feels unnatural. It feels odd.
Totally. Yeah. Totally. And you will change over the course of a campaign. Your goals, your wants, your needs will change. But if you're in a one shot, you're like, no, I came here to eat cheese and drink beer. I will do that. And that's all you do in the one shot.
That's what you will do. Yep, absolutely. And I think that's just because you only have so much time. And when you're trying to entertain, having that one very big goal that you need to do sort of makes the job a little easier to do.
And I also feel like it's your task as the player, not only to play who you want to play, but also facilitate the story.
Yeah.
And if you can't facilitate the story, then the story doesn't get told. Right. So being just like, hey, this is who I am. Let's go. This is what I want. Let's go. Yeah. Tell me how I fit within your story. Don't build your story around me, especially with a one shot.
Yeah. I also want to point out that little picture you have in the background, which is drawn by the ever amazing talent of Who Else Elliott. There on your left side, we're looking. I have that same one to my right here.
That's right.
Hung up on my wall. We played a campaign with Jared during the first Dungeon Run campaign, and Adam played a paladin that I DM'd for them, and this is part of the group there, that picture in the background. I just noticed you had it there, and I was like, hey, I was just looking at that. Sorry, that was side note, but we have a question about the Dungeon Rush, Adam, from Blue Eye Bruin. With the Dungeon Rush, do you have to watch the Secret Room parts too? Do you get spoilers and have a hard time not metagaming?
That's an excellent question. I do have to watch the Secret Room. I do. I have to watch it several times. And I don't personally, and this is just who I am, I don't have a problem not metagaming. But that's just also my tendency and how I play. And I think because the interesting thing about the Secret Rooms is I don't feel like a lot of plot has been, and this is just my opinion, a lot of plot necessarily has been revealed in Secret Rooms as opposed to inner workings of characters and motivations for characters. And it just there's no way for me to possibly metagame that. You know what I mean? If I'm watching, the Secret Room and we find out that Saint's in love with pasta, I'm not going to be able to hey, Saint, lasagna. You know what I mean?
And I mean, that's Jared and I both knowing you prior to the show, one of the strong elements that we knew is that you're not going to metagame. You're very actively working against that, and that's because you take what you know into account. And that's beautiful. In the general concept of metagaming, there are a variety of evils, right? Somebody talked about the evils of things that happen in D&D. Scheduling, not communicating scheduling is one of them. The other one is metagaming. Metagaming has a variety of. Have been recently interested in this concept a lot because there's a part of metagaming that some people view as metagaming and others don't. I see it as metagaming.
Give me an example.
Health points, your HP and what your current HP is. So for me, I kind of assume that's what the medicine check is for. The medicine check is, are you good at it? Then you know exactly how close to death someone is. Just like a doctor would. Like, oh, no, I'm pretty sure this person's close to death because I have a medicine degree and I know kind of what's inner workings are going on. So that's always what I viewed at. And so I've always tried to incorporate the concept of bloodied, right? Like of a bloodied. So when you're below half hit points, you can say, I'm bloodied. So then everyone knows that you're half hit points. But recently there's been an interesting conversation where some individuals say that sharing the exact number of hit points that you currently have is not a form of metagaming. And I think that's an interesting, I'm very willing to be wrong and have my opinion changed. But I just thought it was a very interesting concept. What do you think?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, like you and I are both human beings, right? And if I look at you and you got a broken arm, I can assess how much weaker you are. Right. That being said, I don't know how you're handling that pain. And I think that's where the metagaming comes in for me is like, for instance, I lost a Constitution point a couple of games ago.
Yeah.
And like everyone knows I lost a Constitution point, and they're like, how are you playing that? And like right now, he's leaning on his crutch a little, his cane a little harder, and he's walking slower. It's because that, I mean, I don't need to tell everybody here, like loss of Constitution points, pretty huge.
Pretty huge.
But I just feel like that's where the role play comes in, right? It's like, I like the idea, if I'm down to half hit points, I'll sit there and be like, guys, my right arm's broken. Like my right arm is broken and I'm bleeding profusely from my side. And I'll role play that. I'll be like, okay, well, I'm not going to be running anywhere. I'm not going to be using my right hand to do any, magic or use my sword. So I don't know. I could go both ways. But I think it comes down to if you're gonna tell me that I'm exactly at 18 hit points, do that. But then tell me how you're at exactly 18 hit points.
Yeah, right. And that's
and play it. And play it.
Right. And that's kind of, I think, the heart of my sticking point with the hit points thing is very much like that. And that's kind of why I always lean on, like, well, use your medicine check. That's what it's for. That's what I assign its reasoning for. And I'm the kind of person that, like, because medicine is so rarely used, that if you are skilled in the medicine check and you get to somebody with a death saving throw, not only does it get them out of death saving throws, it gives them hit points. I'm a firm believer in like rewarding the choice that isn't always taken, because I don't know how many people take medicine. I often take it because I like that concept, but a lot of people I have seen and played with have no interest in taking medicine whatsoever. They use like survival or nature rather, because that has a lot more upfront benefits for that particular skill. So, great. But okay, so we had, I think, another question here that I saw.
I got one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Brian. No,
you go.
So let's see. From Discord, I've got. Ooh, they're asking. Music Man 77 is asking, how did you construct the chase scene? Like, what was your process in building that out?
So, great question. Thank you, Music Man. The chase scene was rather difficult because chase scenes are defined in the DMG. You can find a whole page and a half worth of information on chase scenes in the DMG that wizards and the writers have sort of given to you as a tool set. I don't necessarily like exactly how it is base in the DMG. I try to stick with it just because it's easier sometimes, but because you guys weren't all on foot here, the chase rules in the DMG did not really fit the situation. And so I had to kind of think through it using that as sort of a skeleton for that particular sequence. So the way I looked at it was, okay, there's still quarry and a pursuer. It's just instead of one quarry and many pursuers, there's now two quarry and one pursuer. And so thinking about that concept, I was like, well, what would happen if we were on two sleds going down a road and trying to really think about it and just throwing, because the thing about chase sequence is, and what's really interesting are the complications. The complications of a chase sequence are really the meat of a chase sequence. And if you watch any action film, it's the same thing. You run into people, it slows you down a little bit. The pursuer gets closer.
There's that fruit cart that
yeah,
gets in the way.
Exactly. The old trope of a pane of glass being
Right.
drawn across a road.
The elderly woman crossing the street with a cane. Yeah.
Exactly. All these kind of things. And so there's I had to look at the environment. We're on the tundra. We know, I know what's pursuing you, so I know it's capable of doing certain things. So what kind of complications can I come up with that fit with that? And then Jared and I kind of discussed it over and added some few in there that we thought would be cool little, like, if they came up, would be cool little Easter eggs. So unfortunately, those didn't really come up. I wrote a 10 complication a D10 complication table. It's actually technically D20, but only half of them are complications in a chase sequence. I will be releasing that for our DM patrons, so keep a lookout for that. And what I really did was, okay, so we know that the NPCs are driving the sleds. So how do I get the players to be, in their turn order, have something to do? Well, one, I wanted to kind of keep it open so that you could decide what you guys wanted to do, right? Because when you're on the back of a sled, just like when you're riding in an airplane, like I'm going to read a book, I'm going to go to the bathroom, I'm going to, juggle, whatever it is that you want to do while you're waiting for someone else to drive you somewhere.
Like you do on an airplane.
I don't know if you know this, but you can juggle on an airplane. Physics, it's a thing. So I figured, okay, well, we'll make since they are the ones driving the sled, the actual rolls will be done by those who are driving the sled. And so how difficult the sled is to drive will be impacted by the people who are driving it or who are riding on it, because there's weight, you're all sort of heavy in some way, and a variety of things like that. So one thing that I kind of came up with was, I'll set DCs fairly low because you're on a flat plane with winter wolves pulling you at extreme speeds, and they're very used to this. But then I was like, well, but then I'll throw the same things, depending on the complication, at the players and have their failures or successes make it harder for the person driving the sled. And when I sort of landed on that, I was like, I think that will be a fun thing to experience, because now what happens during the complication will impact how you all respond to it. And so I did things like I threw one complication in and Jared's hops got hit by it, which is you can't see anymore as the sled driver. So someone new's got to drive that sled. And so the mechanic changes because the person who was driving the sled is now riding in the sled, and now Saint was driving the sled, and we're using her skill checks. And she's not that great at a sled driving because she's never really done it in her life. So that was kind of some of the thought process that went into creating that chase. And ultimately, it's the same rule of enough successes versus enough failures, and something ends the chase. In this case, y'all failed enough that you got caught by the monster and now have to fight it. Now, the discovery of that being, and again, spoiler guys, we do spoilers here on the Cooldown because we're talking literally about that. So just want to let you know, if you haven't watched it, you should probably already know, but I want to be careful and make sure. Spoiler here. One of the reasons that you roll up on a bigger version of the one chasing you was because Jared and I were just talking about the complications and like, okay, what if this happens? What if that happens? We're trying to think of all the possible things that could happen that you guys could do, and trying to make sure that we have thought about it so that we have a plan if it comes up. We try to not be caught unawares as much as possible, given that it's improv. So one of the things we decided was, well, if they get caught and it's not necessarily that strong of a battle with you and this particular creature, because your levels were easily able to handle the CR, then we'll pull in something else that's more of a, rather than combative, is more of a changes the situation around you. And one of the things that kind of sparked to me as I was talking about was like, why would a mother of this type of animal all of a sudden show up? And I was like, well, the easy answer to that is it's teaching it to hunt. It's a mother teaching a child to hunt. And I was like, that. And when I said that, Jared was like, that's it. That's what it is. And I was like, fine. Great. And that to me was like, that's where I got to play with all the weird noises I was making that these monsters do. That kind of stuff. Was just because, as was the joke was made, I watch a lot of nature documentaries and Jurassic Park. So that was kind of the thought process that went into the chase sequence.
Sure.
So I'm looking forward to doing more in the future with different circumstances, so that I can come up with new complications and ways to tackle that.
Okay, I've seen this question a couple times in Discord and in chat. So people are asking, when's Katie coming back?
Oh, well, Jared sort of is there in chat. Hello, Jared. Good to see you, pal. And he said out loud, we might have a treat for you in the not so distant future. I don't want to ruin it. I don't know if Marvel's watching, but I don't want to ruin it. But let's just say we may be having a Katie-focused episode coming soon. We don't know. That I'm just saying that might be a thing that happens. I don't know if that'll be what happens. It's just a might happen.
Can I tell you, I would be so excited to play with Katie. I've only played with Katie once, and it was so much fun because I got to play with Ursula as Cristobal in an audition style game, and we just spent most of the episode talking about how to fix her hair. That was the majority of the episode.
And you guys made it very entertaining and easy to watch, and it was great. And I am also excited about that. I'm excited to have you at the table with Katie. I certainly am excited for that possibility. I can't wait because I know you two are just so good at that. Let's make a meal out of a snack.
Thank you, buddy.
And it's incredible to watch and humbling to be a part of. So well done. Yeah, so that's an answer there for Katie. She's definitely on the radar. She's still involved, and if you missed the one shot that they did on Halloween, I highly recommend you go watch it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And if you aren't following us on TikTok, in fact, one of Katie's character videos on TikTok has gone beyond 500,000 views.
What?
That's insane, guys.
That's
you should go check it out.
I got a couple more questions for you. Cool. Druid Otter's got a couple back-to-back that I want to throw at you. So one, they were asking if, I'm going to mispronounce this, guys, because I always do. Lycanthropy? Lycanthropy. Dang it. Will it be introduced at some point in the campaign?
I want to avoid this question a little bit because it's an obvious. I think it's one of those that I think many people have probably thought of, considering that we have the Animus, and we have a little bit involved with that. So definitely have thought about lycanthropy. See, now you got me doing it. We've definitely talked about and considered lycanthropy. In fact, it's kind of what the Ursaka sort of arose from. I was very upset that the only kind of bear people you could find in D&D normal are bear lycanthropes. So or what are they called? Ursicanthropes? I forgot what they're called.
I don't remember.
Ursicanthropes. Anyway, lycanthropes, but bear as the base animal. And I was like, well, I can't be one of those unless it's a homebrew rule. So I would just love there to be a race that you could choose that was that, and that's where the Ursaka sort of came about. Was
nice.
that particular thought process.
And then Druid Otter follows that right up with, will there be dragons or in the game, whether it be hydras or wyverns or...
Well, again, I don't want to ruin things that are coming, but I will say that we're playing a game called Dungeons and Dragons, and I think that we would probably be sued if we did not include both of those things. So definitely dragons are going to be included. Yeah. I think the fact that Dragonborn exists in the world probably should indicate to you that dragons are probably real too.
Yes.
And the audience, and I can say this because you have, as we already discussed, you have seen the secret rooms. The audience, there's at least one dragon around. And so, keep it up.
Ryan Winters also follows that up with, have you ever put a dragon in the dungeon? I'll start with this. When I ran a one-shot not too long ago, where I took a different approach to a dragon. Yes, the dragon ran the dungeon, but the dragon was bored because it was millennia old. So what the dragon did was it took various stories that it had heard, which I interpreted as fairy tales, and put the adventurers in the various fairy tales. So they'd walk into one room and all of a sudden you're in Hansel and Gretel's house. And then you walk into another room and you're looking at like a classic Sleeping Beauty style situation. And it was all for the enjoyment of the dragon. So and when they finally got to the dragon was so excited that it was like, great, you did it. Great. And you're gone. Because they just teleported out of the mountain because it's a dragon.
It's a
It's
dragon.
incredibly powerful.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, it's just I totally see them messing around with humans and dwarves and elves and any sort of humanoid race. So I've definitely done it.
For sure. I've definitely done it too. I think that probably came from just reading Lord of the Rings, right? Smaug
Sure.
being stuck in the mountain. So that's definitely a thing. But I also like silver dragons a lot, and silver dragons tend to take the form of the people that they care most about, and then just live amongst them. So sometimes silver dragons love dwarves, and dwarves live in mountains. So definitely a thing that I have done. Whether that will happen in this campaign or not, you'll have to keep watching.
I mean, we do have a silver dragon born.
You do. Yeah. Infinity Hamster, please do not sue me. Yes, Will Meister, that was the word I was looking for. Werebear.
Werebear, there it is.
Werebears.
Let's see. Ooh,
we sound like Care
okay.
Bears. A Werebear, Care Bear.
Werebear stare.
Werebear glare.
I like that better. Okay, this is probably a no-brainer. Angel Devilson asked, what is something... Oh, well, they want specifics. Okay, great question. What is something that was supposed to happen that never did happen, or something that you wish had gone a different way? Specifics. So do you have one, Ron? Something that didn't happen that I wish had, or something that I wish had gone a different way? Yeah. I mean, I'll start as Cristobal. Dying.
Oh, yeah, for
sure. I didn't want it to go that way. The death part. Yes, I wish that had gone a different way. Cristobal would have loved to have run to the aid of Val and actually succeeded at aiding Val, as opposed to immediately dying.
My personal view on a lot of this is I try not to think too much about what I wish had happened or what I wish had gone differently, mostly because to me it's an exercise in what ifs, and that just doesn't help when you're trying to tell a story and move forward. But sure. It's natural for people, especially if you're watching or that kind of thing, to go, well, what would be different? So now applying that logic, the only thing that I think I might have wanted to go a little different would have been Ursula's exit.
Yeah.
We did it good. I'm not saying that what we did wasn't good. It was what happened was very good, and it has helped us tell the story. But it was more of I probably wanted it to happen a little later.
I mean, that's hard, right?
Yeah, but it's hard.
You guys were working within a constraint that was completely beyond your control. Exactly. I think you did a fantastic job with it.
Well, thank you. I agree. Yeah. I think we did a fantastic job with what we were given. But it's one of those where this is the kind of place, this is where I go when I think of what I could do different, which would be like I would only do different things that I had no control over.
Exactly. Will Meister, living is the greatest adventure of them all. I agree with you, Peter Pan.
Well, Will Meister, you're taking my words, man. How many times have I said that? And I mean, you're taking my words. I took them from Hook. So
right,
what do I know? It's just the next great. It's the beginning of a greater adventure. Exactly.
Favorite.
And I hope you guys have seen that. Like with what we've created, especially with Lumbra, like we've shown you that death is not the end. There's just more to it, and that's wrapped up deep in many mythologies.
Fun fact about Cristobal: his original character design was based off of Captain Hook.
Oh, nice. I think you told me that actually, because I've
seen.
And if you look at your character imagery from
exactly
our art, it's definitely definitely JD definitely captured that essence for sure.
Ooh,
yes, DePartos, darn those pregnant people and interrupting D&D.
Right? Not thoughtful at all.
Unacceptable.
A.G. McLeod asked, favorite in-game moment so far? Favorite in-game moment so far?
You go first.
Me? Okay. Favorite in-game moment so far? I think I would say when the ice giant Tess came after the Ramhidi, and like the tension there was so palpable for me. Like us trying to get on that float, us escaping. I could see that ice giantess like watching us from the bank, and then seeing the gnolls running down the far side. Like the feeling that was one of my favorite moments personally, because I just, especially for Cristobal, like everything got real, right then. It's like, oh my God, look at what I'm surrounded by. Because up until that point, all he knew was that, oh, here's a couple of knolls, here's the cold, and all this I can kind of deal with. But no, there's a frost giantess, there's the Ursaka, there's the Ramhidi. Like, this is completely out of his element. So that was my favorite part.
I think my favorite moment is dinner with Otto. I think that's
That was
my
super
favorite
cool.
moment was dinner with Otto. And the reason I think that's one of my favorite moments is the way that Serena played Otto in that whole situation. When I went and got to watch it afterwards, I was like, this is it's Serena, I love you. Yeah. But it was also I think that was probably the strongest way that Jared and I have been able to show the benefit of two DMs, of being able to do scenes like that where we got to be players for a couple of minutes. You know what I mean, we're playing NPCs, so we're running that, but we got to, like, there was, in the first campaign, Jared and I really enjoyed scenes with Uggo and Civ. We had a lot of similar viewpoints in the base character from the start, and so there was a lot of camaraderie that was sort of naturally built in there. Adding the love triangle stress in that situation too, kind of made scenes with him easy and meaty from the get-go. And that's kind of what it felt like with that dinner with Otto scene. There was a lot that we discovered in the moment because we wanted to discover it in the moment, and let us showing the audience that we're making changes as we're playing the game. Like, we're literally discovering things alongside of the audience. And I think that was, for me, that was a very enjoyable moment. It maybe not have been very clear to the audience that was what was going on at the time, but that's definitely what was happening. Is we had like a structure, and then we're like, okay, we're going to make choices in the scene that will impact that structure that we sort of built. And you guys are already starting to see some of that, of those choices. So that was my favorite moment so far.
Sure.
But we got so many more moments, so
I know.
it's easily going to be changed soon.
Ooh. Druid Otter's asking when you're going to make a list of all the deities, Ron.
Yes. Probably when you get off, if you get off the first island, when you actually start having, oh, well, no, we know these gods, so here's they are. But I have a pantheon. There's a very clear structured regiment of the pantheon. I'm still working on sort of an easy guide of, like, picturesque guide of gods, rather than one of just like, here's the info dump of what the god does. But I'm still working on the pantheon and a visual guide to the pantheon.
Well, I love naturally discovering it. Like, I know I spoke to you guys off camera a little bit about, like, Lumbra, for instance, wasn't supposed to necessarily be a focus off the top, but just because of the way it happened, like, all of a sudden Lumbra's like thrust front and center.
And honestly, that's great. I think that was, for me, that's the benefit of building a pantheon, is at least, if you're not on Twitter, and I'm not telling you to get on Twitter now, because it's a crazy show, Elon and whatnot. But the Strix, at the Strix, just recently posted something about pantheons and gods, and one of the strong things that they were saying about this is, and I even said the Dungeon may see some of the concepts that the Strix has spoken about in this particular thing, which is that gods have a very specific. Gods are really just emotions that humans have. Right? Like, they're just the epitome of that emotion. And so I have always thought that of gods. I learned that from reading, as a kid, trying to get away and escape. Reading the mythology, I was like, oh, man, these are all the emotions that I deal with sometimes. And, like, they're just written down, and they've been written down for thousands of years, which means I'm not alone, and that's exactly what it is. And so part of what they're talking about is having some familiarity, or the word that they use, the actual word of is not refractoring. It's what's the word she uses? It's here. It's an archetype they inhabit. Resonance. Resonance of gods, especially if you're creating them, is important. So one of the reasons go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, that's American Gods. I don't know if the chat has read it, but that's a great summation of exactly that.
And that's where I learned it. Where I learned it was reading American Gods. It was literally where I was like, oh, okay, if you give them enough of a one-to-one and then change some other things, it becomes interesting and doesn't actually work against you. It actually works in your favor. The fact that some of our gods should feel somewhat familiar, for example, Bahatha should feel a little bit like Gaia, and the reason that we have that is because it's that resonance, right? There's a lot that you bring and assume up front that I don't have to teach you of this new god, that you just then go, okay, cool, this is new and interesting, and now you have this resonance of creating what's already there but making it more and gathering interest that way. So awesome. That's one of the things I think you're seeing with the Lumbra aspect is, we came up with a very specific set of what do they care about, and then we did that with all of the gods. I did that with all the gods. It was kind of my job, was all that, the pantheon. And then seeing that come to play already is really cool. And I think in the next couple of episodes, I think we've already started teasing it. You're going to be seeing even more of it.
Nice.
And so I hope also all you watchers out there understand then what we mean when we say that through your interactions, you become minor gods in this pantheon.
Oh, huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So I'm very proud of that aspect, right? Like that Jared and I have been working on. I'm very proud. I think that's what really sets us apart from a lot of other games that people have seen, is that like literally the gods are active, like in Norse and Greek mythology, and that you watching this story are just part of them.
Yep. Amazing. Mr. Ryan Winters asked, I don't know. The souls in the mirror, are they trapped or are they dead?
Ooh. I'm curious to see what you think.
Me personally?
Yeah. I'm curious what you think. I'm not going to reveal anything because that's a whole story and I don't want to reveal it, but I'm curious what you think.
Personally, I feel like humanoids are tokens to these deities, and they are chess pieces that they move on the board for power. And the souls is an example, for instance, of when your pawn moves all the way across the chessboard, and you can then remove the pawn to put in a new piece that fits however you need it to fit. And especially with someone like Lumbra, who is a creationist, it's like, oh, cool, I've got these. If brick's not working anymore, I got to switch over to iron or steel. That's how I view the souls. I think the souls are much more like the bodies and the people. Yes, dead. But the souls themselves, I feel, are just going to be used as a different form of currency.
And I think you've already kind of guessed that, especially with the wasps taking the souls, that they were some sort of currency or some sort of resource. So we've already kind of reinforced that in a different way, and not with Lumbra, with obviously our Reapers, but so spot on. I think that's smart. I think that's a smart. That's intuitive. And
Thank you.
Yeah. Who knew that you're a smart man? We all did. That's the answer.
I'm not just chest hair, people.
You are not just chest hair. You're chest hair with a brain.
Oh, thank you.
Just a brain and chest hair. I know that's weird.
It.
That's it. Infinity Hamster 66 says mortals are going to fight back at some point, since mortals don't like being chess pieces being moved. That's very true. But I will also point back to what we were talking about with resonance, where gods are just the epitome of a particular personality or trait. And what happens when we try to fight, I don't know, love?
Right. You're also assuming how the mortals know how the mortals are being used.
Right.
It's like, if the whole idea is, if I told you that, yes, I'm going to use you, but at the end of the day, it's going to cause the end of famine in the world.
Right.
Like, would you fight it?
Change? Right.
Maybe. I mean, maybe you would. I'm not you, but at the same time, the god could lie to you.
Yeah. If you're not watching it, Ondor is a perfect example of that concept that you just said right now. In the latest episodes, that was kind of reflective of that, of like knowledge and what knowledge by individuals who are being used, what it means to the situation. And I think that's what you're seeing. Even Saints started asking, it's like, how do we not know more about these gods? Well, you don't have civilization.
Yeah.
The only reason we know about gods is because people wrote it down. Yeah. Right? The only reason we know anything about the Greek and Roman gods is because they were like, you know what? maybe we should write this.
Yeah, as opposed to knocking a bunch of dwarven structures over and burying them in the ice.
Yeah, let's maybe write this down and then pass it. I mean, obviously it started by passing orally until we got to the point where we could write. But Greek and Romans, they had writing, so they wrote them down.
Civilization, guys. Progress. You want progress.
Exactly. Now, I don't know if we want Roman progress, but maybe in some ways, what did the Romans ever do for us?
Aqueducts. Who uses aqueducts?
Who uses aqueducts? Farming. Who uses farming? All right. Well, we have actually gone over a little bit. It's so easy to talk with you, dude. It's so easy to just chat with you, man. That time just flies by. We're actually 10 minutes over. Thank you, Tiny Misfortune. Great way to wrap it up. The greater good. Yes.
Indoor plumbing is the greater good. I think.
Yep. I also, side note, I also love that Sate thinks there's bidets. Love that bidets exist in the world now.
Yeah.
Love it.
And they do. And they do. I can totally see Cristobal having a bidet in his Roman bath.
One thing I learned about going to Turkey, Ephesus to Turkey, is one of the preserved baths there in Turkey shows you that they actually had running water underneath like similar toilet bowl seats that we have currently. So just to show you that the toilet has not changed in thousands of years. So it is very, and when you look at it and how much water was coming through that, it was literally like the tour guide was like, we're pretty sure that water would just run on your butt. And that would be how you got clean. And I was like, that's brilliant.
Well, you don't know how to use the three seashells, Ron? What do you mean? This guy doesn't know how to use the three seashells.
No, thanks. I'm good. Don't need to scrape that. No. I don't know if you know this about three seashells. They're sharp.
That's true.
No thanks. Well, thank you, everybody. That was a wonderful cool down today.
Thank you so much,
for
everybody.
all the questions. As always, we want to thank you for your time and efforts for our show, for this cool down, for the show on Wednesday nights, and for any show that we output. Thank you so much to our Patreon supporters. As we've indicated, Patreon is the reason we can do this show, and largely the reason we can do the main show as well. So thank you so much. Again, if you have not considered being a patron, please consider it. We've got a lot of awesome rewards, and we make the show better with every person we add. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your time, your donations, everyone who subscribed, who gave out subscriptions. Thank you so much. It was great to see some familiar faces in chat today. I am the Raven Queen, Crazy Kate, Brianna, a lot of old school names that I saw today. That was really good to see. Thank you, everyone, for joining
Tell the people about the show, everybody.
Please.
Keep spreading that word. Get them in. And the Dungeon Rush is a great way to get people into the story.
Exactly what I was going to say. Catch up with the story very quickly comparative to every other show on the internet. So make sure you guys spread that word and get us get more and more viewers so that we can continue to grow the show and have even greater episodes going forward.
More and more chest hair, everybody.
More and more chest hair.
More chest hair.
It also gives me some more time to actually paint and print minis if we want, that kind of stuff. So thank you, everyone. We appreciate you. We heart you in a big way. And as always, humankind, be both.
Be both.
We'll see you next time.
Later, all.